All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the North Bay Electric Auto Association meeting for November 11th. I have that right. Um, yeah, today we will be discussing things about EVs and about our club. Um, so first off, we'll be doing introductions. We'll get to go around, talk to each other about who we are and what we drive. I think that's the question.
How we get
And
around?
we'll discuss any chapter of business we have, and we'll go through events and news. And finally, our presentation is actually not going to be a presentation today. It's going to be a discussion of our strategic planning for 2024 for the club. And then after that, we will have time for open discussion if we still have time after we've gotten through the rest of the agenda. All right, so for section, let's just say who you are and how you get around. I will start. My name is Cecilia Sullivan. I'm president of North Bay Electric Auto Association. Um, and I drive a Model 3 2018. And I will pass to Jerry.
And I'm Jerry Glazer, and it says that I'm treasurer, but the treasurer really doesn't do anything because I don't even get to approve what we spend money on, as far as I can tell the way the system works. And I'm driving both 2018 Nissan Leaf and a 2023 Kia EV6. And yesterday I tried doing my free charge again in Santa Rosa and finally got that to work. It turns out you have to be careful which login you use, otherwise I get charged. And I'm enjoying the EV6, and I've let Tesla drivers drive it, and they go, "Oh,
Good.
hey Russ, you want to go next?"
I'm Russ Wigglesworth in Petaluma. I drive a 2015 Kia Soul, which I just got back from Jim Bone Kia for the battery, well, the most recent recall. And they charged me up. No, they didn't charge me up. They did all the battery management and the wiring configuration was redone, but they didn't charge me either money or electricity. So I had a deal trying to get down from there because I thought they were going to replace the battery when I went in, but they didn't. So that's it. How about John?
Okay. Yeah, I'm John Palmerly. Ellen and I are partners over here in crime with EVs, and she's not here today, but I typically drive a 85 Toyota pickup that I got in an accident with. And just a little update, I'm still in the process. I have most of the fender parts that I got from a pick and pull up here, local junkyard. And I'm doing some unbending and reinstallation slowly. So it's encouraging, and even though it's a little overwhelming too, but we should have Val back on the road. She drives fine, except for, a problem with the alignment and everything. I should share a picture right now. There's no left front fender or front radiator support, so it looks like some kind of jalopy. But anyway, so
And I'm getting close to needing the crimpers, and I should show you the CAD development I did for the electrical system for the van.
okay.
All right, let's move on to David Heacock.
Yeah, I'm Dave Heacock. I'm been driving my wife's 2007 Saturn Hybrid for last month or so. I had a
made a major mistake on leaving my battery on my Avani on overnight and killed over half the pack. So been trying to move 100-pound modules around, which is kind of interesting, but slowly hoping I get it running again here sometime soon.
So there's nothing on it that you've got devised that will slow down the charging?
Nah, it didn't have anything to do with charging. It had something to do with leaving the key and left on overnight. And when you do that, it has a water pump that runs, and I think that's probably what took the pack way down. So killed a few cells here and there. If anybody knows, I've talked to John about this, but if anybody knows how to replace a pouch module in an A123 module, the pouch cells in the module, let me know, because I got a bunch of modules that have just one cell that's bad. The rest of them are fine. So I don't know if there's a way to, I've been talking to John about it and some other people, and I guess it's kind of hard to do, but seems like such a waste. It gets back to it's an interesting discussion about how do you recycle things. And I'm always trying to do stuff like that. I got lots of scrap metal laying around that I keep welding into different things. So anyway.
Okay. All right. Dom.
Yeah, Dom Huldemard, and I think I've shared. I have a truck and a car and or EV6 and a bike, and I usually ride the bike in town. And yesterday, I had the opportunity to drive my EV6 over to Elk Grove with my wife and my mom and a bunch of stuff. And it was the first time I had taken a true road trip, just trying to white knuckle it, 110 each way, and was pleasantly surprised how accurate the GOM is. The GOM is not a GOM. It's within a couple of points of being right. And I was doing the math both directions the whole trip, and by golly, by gosh, we were within like 3 miles of my estimate by the time we got back. So I was very pleasantly, yeah, thank you, Cecilia. I was very pleasantly surprised that the estimates on range were pretty much spot on. So
it really is quite amazing, and I've now found that as I add more air to the tires, I'm getting over 4 miles per kilowatt hour in the car, even on the highway.
Yeah, we stayed at speed limit. The times I went above it are probably the times that it ate the efficiency up a little bit. So speed limit over there most of the way is 65. We stayed in the speed limit most of the way, and we were within a few miles of being spot on. So 220 miles round, it showed up back at the house, maybe 230 with all the local traffic in Elk Grove, showed up back at the house with 75 miles of range. So it was just, I mean, like I said, it was within a couple of miles of being perfect. So I was very happy with that.
All right. Caleb.
Yeah. Caleb Lander. So I live down in Aliso Viejo. Right now I'm actually driving a Volkswagen Taos because my ID4 has been in the shop for about a week. All the assistance features had started just flashing and freaking out because Volkswagen's software is garbage. So yeah, it's been there. And my heated seat stopped working. So in a car that's less than a year old, it's not been the most appealing vehicle that I've ever had, but it gets me around. And I got laid off a few weeks ago, so I haven't really been driving anywhere except for the kids to school and back. So it's been kind of a quiet walk around, go for a run type of a month for me.
Regroup.
All right. Woody.
Good morning, all. Woody Hastings. I live in Sebastopol Drive. Don't drive much. I work from home, but when I drive, it's still many moons. The 2013 Chevy Volt. And I think Mike is the only one that hasn't gone yet. Mike, have you gone?
Nope. Everybody. Yep, still driving my 2011 Leaf, although I had to drive it to the east side of Santa Rosa and back yesterday, and and I was trying to see if the GOM was going to make it or not, but I did. Yeah, but I still got a couple more family trips coming up, which might be when our next meeting is. But one of the things I wanted to say about that was, yeah, now there's more and more electric vehicles coming up in the car rental services. So now, it's like Avis has got Mustang Mach-E's in addition to the Tesla Model 3 and a Chevy Bolt. So it's not like they just had one EV car that you can rent. So anyway, it's
What are the prices like, Mike?
Yeah.
still high, on the high side, but yeah, I think that the trip I've got during our December meeting is just for like 3 days. So I'm still paying a little extra to do an EV for a shorter one. And so yeah, around $60 a day if you pre-book on Hertz for a Tesla. And there's some statements about whether you should pre-book or not, because but anyway, and I'm just saying that's uh you can get a regular car rental for probably around uh $35 to $40 a day for that. So that's what I'm saying, a little bit higher than if you're just going to get some transportation. You can get less, but
That's interesting because I rented in Florida and I looked at getting an EV. My gas car that I rented was close to $60 a day in Florida. So I guess it's different places. Hey, one other thing on your car, a friend of mine was looking at repowering his 2012, 2013 Leaf. And there's a place down in Hayward or San Jose for $5,000. We'll repower the car for you if you're interested.
yeah,
He
I
ought
might be.
not to, so because he has a Tesla too.
Uh-huh.
Mike, is the expectation when you rent an EV that you return it fully charged like you do with a car?
The expectation is you return it at the same level you rented it with. So
Okay.
so yeah, two times I rented, they were both like at 80%.
Okay.
And one time well, yeah, one time I rented, they literally like just basically got the car back. It had like 30% on it when I picked it up. And anyway, I still returned that one with more, back up. But yeah, that's what they say, the same percentage.
Same percentage, okay.
Yeah, they've been pretty good about it. I was renting electrics when I went to the Bay Area quite often, and it ended up being the cheapest car most often, actually, over the summer, was to rent like a Model 3 or even a Model Y. And they have a pretty soft policy, I'd say, on the charge, like on the return charge. Like in a situation like Mike, where you had it at 30, I had picked one up and it was probably around 50, and like you just have to bring it back at a minimum of 10%. So they have a pretty soft limits, and I think if you bring it back below 70%, it's like 20 or $25 from Hertz to like fill it up for them. So they don't, and they've waived that. So like depending on where you get it, like I rented again in Boston and got a Model 3, and it was hard to get a convenient charge within 50 miles of the airport, and they were pretty fair about that.
But they ended up renting you guys cars with less than full, and then expecting you to go someplace, plug in and wait.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. So it's not a refined process yet, I would say.
Okay.
I've only ever picked one up where it's been below 70% once, and it was still within. It was about 50%. So it wasn't like 30%. That would be quite frustrating.
Seems like
But
this would be a
Hertz is
good
the-
topic for our open
Yeah.
discussion.
I asked, but Hertz is the company to target then, because I went with Enterprise and their price for EV was really high.
Yeah, Hertz was pretty competitive.
Yeah, the only electric I rented from Hertz was an iThink.
All right. All right, so chapter business. So that NBEAA is a chapter of the Electric Vehicle Association, or EVA. We have a website, nbeaa.org, where you can find access to all of our groups, for our social media channels, etc. We do emails 3 times a month. If you sign up for that group, you'll get an email for a week advance and 1 day notice for the meetings, and a recap after the meeting is over. This meeting is being recorded, and those recordings do wind up on YouTube, and you can find it at our YouTube channel. And the presentation, if we had one today, would be linked from our website. So these are a few of the groups that we have. At a minimum, recommend you join our club group. That gives you the notifications. We also have a discussion group if you want to discuss EVs and other topics with fellow members.
Be a good one to have on that rental discussion.
Right. Announcements,
sorry.
events. I don't think we have any events. Do we have any announcements or events that people are aware of?
The only thing I keep mentioning, or should keep mentioning, is I'm our representative today on the Sonoma County Transportation Authority, and we do have monthly meetings. And a lot of the stuff is interesting because all the buses are now being converted to electrics, and there's discussion about last mile and how that should be handled. Everybody's in the red as far as income because we haven't gotten back all of the ridership that was there before, and funding has dropped. The one place that is well beyond pre-COVID ridership is SMART. It was at 105% of ridership and has now gone well beyond that as it works its way up. SMART's been pretty cool. And anybody who gets tired of waiting for the traffic to go south from here, I tell you, get on SMART. And when it goes from Petaluma to Novato, it breaks 80 miles an hour nonstop. So you can make the trip pretty fast. It's too bad it doesn't make it all the way to Ukiah, but when it makes it to Cloverdale, you might have pretty good rides to get to San Francisco. So I've been doing a lot of commuting doing that. But the meetings are interesting, and there's a meeting in January, and that one's going to focus on something which has bothered me, which is that in the county of Sonoma, we have 3 different bus transit districts. And sometimes you can be going through Santa Rosa and find 3 buses from 3 different transit districts go down the same street within a few hundred yards of each other. There was a study in 2019, which I've now since read. It's 213 pages, 233 pages long, talking about how to integrate those transit districts. Marin has 1, Santa Clara has 1, Alameda has 1, but we have 3. So that'll be an interesting meeting as well. But I'm enjoying this. Dom's taken my place once, and if we ever lose our seat, I'm going to apply for this seat for District 5 from Sonoma County, which, by the way, is open. So if somebody else wants to get involved in transit, we haven't had anybody from the Sebastopol area, for instance, the West County, sitting on the advisory council. If you want me to bring anything to the meetings, tell me, because I will. If we're not getting enough charge stations at the right places, or if things aren't handled right.
Okay. All right, Woody.
Just chiming in, since I just heard we don't have anyone from the West County. This is a closely related. It's not the Transportation Authority, but it's the Regional Climate Protection Authority, which is under the wing of the Transportation Authority, and they have this Climate Action Advisory Committee Council that, Jerry, you've served on. My wife June, who is a sometime attendee of these meetings, is recently joined that, and just attended her first meeting recently, and so that's an advisory council. Jerry, I think it meets quarterly. It just meets 4 times a year. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, just wanted to mention that because you know, if we need a person that's sort of in that mix, we do have Agent June.
Yeah, and I should mention also, you made me think of something, Woody. This week, I met along with Steve Pierce, Lisa Pierce, and some other people from Sebastopol, with Tanya from RCPA, and a rep now that is dedicated to RCPA, who comes from Bahrain. And our meeting was about how we could get better incentives for people to understand incentives and electrify and things like that. So hopefully we'll see some more action through that as well. But that was an interesting meeting. They're asking for our input.
Thank you. All right. Moving on. Okay, so our news and interesting stuff. Okay, so Honda recently canceled their joint plan with GM to produce affordable EVs. They previously announced this plan in April 2022. Honda says they're still committed to doing affordable EVs, just not with GM at the current plan that they were working on. The Honda and GM are still doing a partnership. They will be doing the GM Cadillac Lyriq, Chevrolet Blazer, the Honda Prologue, and the Acura ZDX, which will be sharing platforms. Yeah, so that's that.
Any details on why they decided not to?
There's no it's not clear why. There's some speculation that it's just that I think it was possibly, you know, it could be supply issues, could be just to deal with the market, but we'll see what comes out of Honda in the future.
The reason I'm asking the question was that I was wondering if they were sharing technology on the batteries, because they both have different battery technology.
Oh, for the I know they're working. They're sharing a platform, and I think at some point they were going to actually using GM's technology. But as far as the cheaper EVs, I don't know exactly what was in that plan.
That's got to be something that worth following to see if they've given up on affordable EVs altogether.
They say they're still committed to affordable EVs.
Okay, but separately, is that what you're saying, Cecilia?
Oh, and as part of the same statement, they're saying that they're still committed. They're just not doing this partnership with GM for affordable EVs.
Right.
What's considered affordable in the EV world these days? Does anybody know what that is?
That's a good question.
I think they're defining it as like under 30,000.
Under 30,000?
Yeah.
Is that with
I mean,
with incentives or?
That's without the incentives.
Yeah, without.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think I've heard, you know, in various conversations that the goal is sort of to have the EV affordable would be the EV basically being equivalent in price to an equivalent class of vehicle, essentially, you know, that you're not, you know, shelling out a lot more upfront for a similar vehicle that's gasoline.
On that point, a friend of mine is looking for a used car, and she's focused on a Prius right now. So she was showing me prices for Prius 2019, 2018, whatever, and they're coming in at $20,000. And so then I looked at a 2018 used Leaf. 2018 used Leaf is at $19,000. So the EV is and in the used market right now, compared to a hybrid for a comparable vehicle, looks like it's more affordable.
Isn't there some, I don't know what the criteria was, some rebates or something for used vehicles now?
That's $4,000 for a used vehicle. It's too bad Brad's not here. He's been investigating that. It's $4,000 for a used vehicle, I think, as long as you buy through a dealer.
I mean, it seems like we're already there, that there's between gas and electric, there's a lot of potential for being right in the exact same market. If you say under 30,000 and you were to get $7,500 back on a new vehicle, I mean, that'd be fantastic. I mean, seems to be we're already in a competitive market.
And the other part is that Dom and I just both bought the EV6s. I think if you looked for a comparable, it's a reasonably luxurious car, quite frankly, from my point of view. And if you went for something comparable, the price wouldn't be very different for a gasoline powered model.
Yeah.
All right. So Honda has recently introduced their Prelude concept. I think they stopped making the Prelude a while back, but they're showing off this possible EV that they'll produce in the future. I did this at the 2023 Japan Mobility Show. It's two-door car.
Beautiful car.
A thing that I've been noticing with Honda is that when they do EVs, they've often done like a new vehicle name, a new model. I think this will be like one of the first that they will be like, we've had this car in gas form and now we're doing it in electric form. I did do that for the Fit EV in 2013, but I can't think of any others that they've done that with. So that's kind of cool. Okay. Dom, did you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so this one, as you guys, or some of you know, I tow quite a bit. Got 46,000 miles on our Silverado, 2021 Silverado. So 2 years, 46,000 miles. And I would say, based on the trailering thing, we've towed about 14,000 miles. So it's at fully a third of our miles are towing miles. So always looking for a way to reduce my carbon signature when towing. And this thing popped up this week. It's a series hybrid architecture. Ram is not calling it that. They're saying it's whatever they're saying. There was some questionable language in the announcement, right, Cecilia? But nevertheless, it's simply a series hybrid architecture combined with a 145-mile EV range and 545 of Brex. You're looking at 690 miles of total range. And as a person who tows quite a bit, you can cut that number up to about 40% when towing. So you're looking at some kind of refill, replenishment requirement in the 250-mile range, we'll call it. It's got a 92 kilowatt liquid cooled battery pack. I don't know if I read whether it was LFP or not. I can imagine it would be to keep the costs down. And then it uses.
It did say in the article it was LFP, I thought.
It did say, okay, thanks, Jared. Yeah, it's a V6, so it's the same exact motor that they're using in all their other Rams, their V6, and they're combining with a 130 kW generator. So it's a beast of a generator. One of the reviews I read this morning from Alex on Autos was indicating that there is a mountain mode similar to the Volts. So it would allow you to store electricity in the battery, to allow you to, when towing, to go up things like the Sierras, the Sacramento to Reno trip, or 395, or going over the Rockies. If you use the mountain mode, it allows you to do that. Enormous numbers of horsepower and torque, and there is no mechanical shaft between the electric or the gasoline engine and the drive shaft. It is 100% like a diesel locomotive. So it is it's generator to battery sort of approach, offering vehicle to vehicle and vehicle to house. I think it said vehicle to grid. I don't know if I got that right. Right out of the gate. So like most of the other trucks, it's coming with 7,200 watts outlets, 220 and 110 outlets, but because it's also vehicle to house, I'm sure it'll have some kind of through the connector, through the charge port approach as well to run your house off of it. Talks about having a 400-volt architecture, 50 miles in 10 minutes. So it's a very unique vehicle. It's a vehicle that if anybody remembers Bob Lutz from GM, the early, when the Volt came out after he left GM in 2011 or 2012, his comment was that trucks should use the Volt architecture. Well, it took him 13 years to do it, but and it took Stellantis to do it, of all things, because everybody would have assumed that GM or Ford would have gone down this road. Ford, the non-lightning, I think they call the Power Boost is what Ford called their light hybrid, and it's nothing like this. This is a much more substantial approach. So,
Don, what's V2V?
Vehicle to vehicle.
Or vehicle to home. I'm wondering if they actually do take it out the DC port, or if they're just talking about the 110s like they did on the EV6. Because
I'm hoping it goes out the port, right? I mean, that's the most convenient way that you could get DC out and run your house off of it.
And what's the charge rate? It's here 50 miles in 10 minutes. But you know what the kilowatt rate?
I have a chart on that. We can figure that out at the end, but I don't have it. I didn't compute that.
I thought when I read the article, I thought it was really curious that they use the same motor. I mean, a V6 to run the generator just feels like a little overkill.
It's a big generator because there's no other coupling, right? So when you are you need to replenish that. You need to replenish your what you drain off the battery. What they did say, what one of the reviews said today, that shoot, never mind. Maybe I'll remember it. I just had it and it's gone.
Well, I just wanted to have some comments about efficiency. I know I shouldn't say that, but
It's 20 miles per gallon. That's what they were talking about. It's about a 20 mile per gallon truck.
Yeah. But you look at the if it really only has a 145-mile EV range, which I presume is like they're cutting it way back because it's a hybrid, from the actual 92 kilowatt hours. But it really looks bad. That's less than 2 miles per kilowatt hour. And even for a truck, which is, so they must be being very cautious about that. It seems like. And then my other comment would be that with a V6 putting out only 130 kilowatts, that's really an interesting loss of efficiency there. I imagine that V6 is a 220 horsepower V6 or something, isn't it? Or
yeah, I think so. What is it? The Pentastar V6, if I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Anyway,
John.
I also, without being a naysayer, I think this is going to be a great option for a lot of people who want electric and want to be able to tow, like you're saying. I think that's really cool.
And want to be able to tell people they have a V6.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the challenge as somebody who tows a lot and who charges a lot. I don't charge publicly very much, but there's no way you can tow and charge without stopping traffic for 90 minutes somewhere as your trailer hangs out in the middle of the parking lot. Right? They don't have pull-through charging anywhere. I mean, it's extremely rare. There's no Buc-ee's for charging right now. So anyway,
any idea what the towing capacity is?
it's huge. It was 14,400 pounds.
Wow.
And 2,500 pounds of payload. So it is a beast.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a big dude. I was kind of surprised by it.
All right, moving on, the next generation Bolt will be coming with an LFP battery pack. It's going to be based on the Bolt EUV. There's some speculation that means it might be a crossover. It's going to have the Ultium battery pack. And GM is going to be purchasing LFP cells, and they believe that'll cut off 2 years on its return to market. So we'll see when that comes and what it's going to cost. But the LFP battery does reduce the cost for GM, but yeah, we don't know if that's going to be passed down to consumers or not. Yeah, the Bolt has had like several like discontinuation dates, but it just seems to keep coming back, which is cool.
I wonder if there's a place where we can get what LFP battery costs are, because it was interesting. 3 years ago, LFP was more expensive than NMC, even though the components cost a lot less because it just wasn't enough volume. So as the volumes go up, the price ought to go down quite a bit.
Okay. Right. So recently, 3 locations have been spotted and being tracked for V4 supercharger installation. These are the supercharging stations that will have longer cables, that have charge screens or payment screens. Those 3 locations were in Wilsonville, Oregon, Sparks, Nevada. It's actually a V3 location that's being upgraded to V4, and Prattville, Alabama. I don't know if there are any more since this news came out. This came out last month, but they're rolling it out, and this is going to be kind of necessary for the Cybertruck to charge, since it does support like 1,000 volt DC.
Does anybody see a pull through there?
This is an old like
Nary a one. Nary a pull through site.
this is an old image. I couldn't find anything in Tesla's stock imagery, but they do have a few pull through style stations. Not in this location apparently.
Do you know where Wilsonville is?
Outside of Portland.
Oh, okay.
Outside of Portland.
The city of Kashiwa Noha Smart City they're having testing for doing wireless charging while traffic is stopped at traffic lights. Universities of Tokyo and Chiba and 9 other companies are helping to run this test. What they're testing for is reliability and charging consistency. And one of the cool things is that in just 10 seconds, you can add a kilometer of range. So if you're at a stoplight for like, a minute, you've got like a good, 6 kilometers of added range. That's kind of cool, especially if you have like a shorter range EV, and particularly if you don't have a place to charge at where you park at.
It'll change the way we look at stoplights.
Like, let's make it 2 minutes. 2 minutes. I just need 2 minutes. It's fine. I can be late to work.
Roundabouts, please. Cancel all the roundabouts.
What was that?
Cancel all the roundabouts, right? Just like.
Yeah. Red Materials recently started to allow registered suppliers to get actual money for batteries that they recycle, depending on the condition of the battery. Redwood Materials will arrange for the pickup. And this is considered probably useful for auto dismantlers, people who have access to cars that are coming in and they have batteries to recycle. And just informationally, individuals, they do accept batteries from individuals, like from your batteries or like electronics. They don't pay for those, but you can mail them to their facility.
Just be sure to mark your packages well, because you can't mail lithium.
Right. They do have clear instructions about following, all those guidelines about packaging. And no more than like 66 pounds of batteries, which is like, okay, that makes sense.
I put this one together. I'm glad Woody's on. Maybe he can comment. But about a week ago, Congressman Brownlee submitted. This is a federal bill for House Bill 6178, the Bidirectional Electric Charging Act. So, for those of you who remember the California Senate Bill 233 was to ensure bidirectional EV charging in California by 2030. This is supposed to do the same thing, except at the federal level. And I think everybody, except for Elon, has realized that we're driving around on power walls, and we might as well put them to use when you're doing something other than driving. So it's not clear, when this will come up for vote, but it has been submitted. Woody, did you have any comments on this, or have you had a chance to look at it? I know you follow these things really closely.
Yeah, sure. I mean, the first thing I'll say is that, yeah, this legislation is a direct result. We were in touch with Congresswoman Brownlee, and so it's a direct transfer, if you will. And I also want to say that SB 233 is a 2-year bill. The legislature runs in 2-year in 2-year chunks, and so it will carry over into 2024. I'm not going to go down into the details right now, as it's not like sort of a specific agenda item, but concisely, there were some attempts to really gut the whole purpose of the bill in the Appropriations Committee last session. And so it came close to dying completely, but it did not. And so we're going to come back in 2024 in hopes of, having a meaningful mandate, date a year certain for a requirement of bidirectionality. And yes, like you said, the key thing is that this could be an enormous benefit for all that capacity to support the grid, and then also, of course, for the purposes for individual vehicle owners for their own resilience purposes. So anyway, I'll just leave it at that, but thanks for bringing that up.
Did you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, so I saw this graphic pop up on the right-hand side. Somebody had Sawyer Merritt, who I do not follow, or nor am I on X very much, but Sawyer Merritt created this graphic sometime in late October, about kind of a map of who has bought into the NACS with North American Charging Standard within the United States, or within, I guess that would include Mexico and Canada as well. But it's everybody that we've already heard. But as the time that this graphic was created, just a month ago, neither Toyota had bought in nor Lucid. So we heard on the 19th of October that Toyota is basically on the same timeline as everybody else, 2025. And then Lucid has made the change just this week to move over to NACS. So there was Elon Musk posted. Apparently, Elon Musk and the owner or the founder of Lucid had maybe some public disagreements about the whole architecture, the whole infrastructure, the whole electric vehicle market. Anyway, Elon posted, "That must have been a bitter pill to swallow." So I thought that was kind of a humorous dig on a dig, but nevertheless, this is where this is going. Still not clear what VW is doing. They are they create Electrify America with the Dieselgate funds. Not clear that they'll move over to NACS or how they're going to do it. But and then Stellantis, the same thing. In the reviews that I've read so far, even on the Ram charger, they were silent on the actual particular connector. So not sure what's causing them. Maybe they're worried about Stellantis. May be worried about the U.S. funds, because I think that the Inflation Reduction Act funds still require a CCS charger. Not 100% sure about that, but I think that's written into the legislation. So they may have to make that change or sort of bend the rules to be compliant. But that may be part of Stellantis's reticence, is just that is the funding stream. So who knows? But in any case, I would expect that sometime in the fall or the spring that this whole thing will be green or nearly green in the U.S., Canada. Okay, so this is not news, but I put together just 2 or 3 charts on trying to answer some questions that after spending and going horse at National Drive Electric Week for 4 hours, the kinds of questions that I was getting, which were related to charging. And being an engineer, it didn't occur to me that it was complicated until I tried to put the chart together. And then I realized, oh Lord, this is complicated. Trying to explain it to people that are coming into the market now that want to buy an electric vehicle and try to explain it to them, it is complicated. And so I started thinking about, okay, do we talk about it in watts or volts or amps or kilowatts or miles per hour charging? And then some of the factors are, what's in your car that you bought? Did you buy a 7.2 kilowatt hour charger? Does your car come with 11? What is the wall charger unit? And then what is the efficiency of the car when you talk about miles per hour charging? So I didn't want to go over every row and column on here, but I did spend the time to make an Excel spreadsheet that multiplies the volts and the amps and by the chart to create the charger kilowatt hours, and then the charging efficiency needs to be included. So, sometimes you charge at 90% efficiency, sometimes you charge at 70%. I know my volt, you would put 12 kilowatt hours in to get 10.9 out. So there's an efficiency factor there. But really, I think we should sort of drive towards the convenience method of talking about miles per hours added while charging. And then someone asked me about the breaker size, and then you have to get into the breaker derating and all of those things. So I struggled with the chart. I still struggle with the chart, but I just wanted to point out that as we move past the engineers and the technologists and the early adopters, that we really do need a more convenient way to talk about charging to people that are not in the technical, don't come from a technical or technical community. So, I can send the spreadsheet to anybody who wants it, or I can post it on the same place that Cecilia posted that great analytical work she did last month.
Well, I think it should be on our website. Just a couple of points.
Yeah, sure, Jerry.
Every time that I measure my voltage here in Sebastopol, I'm at 119, 120 volts. So I get close to 240. And in fact, if I look at the car always says that we're charging at 7.8 kilowatts. And if I use the 110, I get 1.4 kilowatts. The thing I would suggest doing is maybe circling 2 of them, which I think are the most common. The second row I would circle, and the amp circuit derated. Where's there a breaker on that one? Wait a second. Amps, you had the breaker on here. Oh, the breaker's over there. Okay, yeah. The one that's the second 40 amp one. I would circle those 2 because I think, and just put a comment on the page also. It says most common that you'll find in a home. Yeah,
that's probably a good idea, Jerry. Just that would allow us to black out all the weird stuff. And I completely forgot about your
you're not going to find that a lot of people with 100 amp and
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's a good point. I put the 100 up there because Bruce Nyden one time came to a meeting and thunderstruck with a breaker his that had melted. He had been running 80 amps on his Model S, and his breaker melted, and he said, "You know anything about this?" And so, anyway, your point is right on. That would,
and the V2Gs, and most of the ones that I've read about that been hit the market, either fit in the 50 amp circuit or the top 40 amp circuit with the 80%.
Right.
And
You
they
know,
did that on purpose because they said, oh, that's what you're gonna find installed. And so they didn't bother going for a higher V to G.
so just kind of what you're suggesting is focus this on a 1450 type connector.
Yep.
And running it at 40 amps on a 1450 or even 32 amps and kind of putting a circle around that. And then also the same thing with 12 amps at 110. Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, and that 50 amp circuit, by the way, if you look at your typical stationary system, the Sonnen system,
Yeah.
actually Tesla's a little bit smaller, but the output on the Sonnen system is about 8.8 kilowatts for a stationary system.
Okay.
You know, and I think anybody have the Tesla Powerwall? No, I think that one runs around 7 something.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. Any other feedback? I'll absolutely take it. I just wanted to. I'm trying to get my head around how to streamline this for the beyond early adopters. So we go to the next slide.
Well, could you hold on?
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, Jerry touched on this a little bit, and I'd like to emphasize it a little. The idea of the AC voltage being 110 and 220. Unfortunately, it's kind of this common publicized misnomer. That's typically for like 3-phase AC or something. You're not. I mean, I have 246 at my house. You know, it's like I've never seen it below 240. So I think you might be better off on average. Maybe say so if you think I'm wrong, but using 240 and 120 as your number for calculation.
Okay.
Yeah,
Or
it's all based
put a
on nominal.
range in. Give it the range of 110 to 120 instead of a static 110. Because
You just know that it's nominal because it's AC voltage, so it's constantly changing up and down, and based on your location, your supplier is going to adjust the voltage across whatever string you're on, essentially, to maintain supply depending on what the demand is. So it's although when you measure it, it's going to be a number. It is going to fluctuate to some degree.
Yeah, I've just from my experience, I've seen it more between 115 and 125.
Yeah, it tends to be on the higher side.
Yeah.
The other one I would put is that the on the AC charger, the 25 amp is in almost all cases 24 amps rather than 25. You'll be hard pressed to find a charger that actually lists itself as 25.
Also, the 30 amp like you would find for dry outlets.
Yeah,
14,
exactly.
1430. Yeah, so maybe those are the 3 that we should look at, or the 1450 connector, the 1430 connector, and then 12 amps. The only concern I had about the 12 amp is that if there's anything else on that circuit, you're going to pop a 50. Well, I guess that's okay. Never mind. If there's anything else on that circuit, you could be at the edge of it on a 110 circuit. You could be at the edge of your rating. You guys just proved my point. You guys just proved my point of the first row, though, because we can't even agree whether it's 110, 115, or 120. So,
it's all of them.
It's all of them.
Yeah, I think if you were to talk to an electrician, they would generally say it's 120 nominal for US supply. That's what you're going to get.
Okay.
And I just tested mine just a second ago, 119.9.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a print in my office that would not work. I have on both legs of my 240. I've got 119 on one leg and 120 on the other leg, and the printer only works on the 120 leg. It does not work on the 119 leg. I had to rewire my panel to make that outlet have 120 when I figured that out because it didn't work.
My car's at 241 right now.
Yours at 241. So more work needed. And then, okay, so then public charging, I took a look at that one as well. And this is a whole different set of challenges. In the public charging case, it's how fast can I get back on the road? That's the primary question. And then also, what do I do on charging? One thing and which is, part of how fast can they get back on the road? The other leg of that was am I in an environment that I feel safe, right? So is there good lighting there? Am I in the back of beyond at a Walmart, or I'm front and center at some other place with great lighting? So, and
I
then
think
of
one of the
course,
biggest challenges.
I have a question,
yeah, I think it was you, Caleb. Go ahead, Caleb.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest challenges you'll have with this is that even though the calculation is very straightforward, the reality of what you get when you get to a station, whether it's posted as being 150 or not, is rarely what you'll actually get, especially if the station is loaded. And I feel like nowadays, especially where in California in particular, those stations have high utilization. And so you're looking at almost half of what the stated capacity is actually getting to your car. And that's just from the station, at the charge curve on individual cars and what kind of chemistry they have. So I feel like this is one of the most challenging to explain to somebody new to EV, is that it doesn't pump at the same rate all the time, and you're not necessarily going to get the same pump rate at a charger that says it's 150 if there's a bunch of cars there. So it's, yeah, there's some, it's not, this one's not quite as black and white.
What I do like is that Electrify America, since they have the EV6 now, on each one of the stations, they actually write down what the max kilowatt rating is. They'll show 150s, 200s, 350s. The one question I have is, there's a new nomenclature showing up. There's DC and there's DC plus. And I see that on a lot of the screens. Does anybody know what DC plus definition is?
I thought it was 150 and above.
Is that what it is?
That's what I thought it was.
If you can actually find that definition, I would show that on the chart here. DC.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. So, Caleb, what you just said made me more nervous. I just told you the first chart at your house was complicated, and now you're saying what's in public is what is beyond complicated? Is that Byzantine? Have we entered that yet?
It's complicated plus.
Complicated.
Right, that's right.
And by the way, there's level 2s out there as well, because I know the EV6 will take level 2 at over 10 kilowatt, even though I can't deliver that home.
I focus this just on DC charging.
No, I see that, but I mean, somebody's asking about those questions too. They may have a vehicle that doesn't take, except all of them take the fast charge now.
So I guess what we need to do as advocates is to try to get this cleaned up. So I keep thinking of post Chatamo time, post CCS time. Everybody's in NACS. It's 2035, and this is easy to talk about. We have to get past the early adopters, because I think what we're running into is all of this stuff is running around the internet right now, and all of the gas companies are using this to help people that EVs are tough because of this kind of crap, right?
Based on what you just said, I would suggest another change on it. Miles added per hour. I would change that to miles added.
Oh, that's a typo. That's just a typo.
No, that's fine. But I would change it to 15 minutes. And the reason for changing it to 15 minutes is when you get to the 350, you would show, 250 miles. Well, aren't any cars holding 1064.
Yeah, you're right, Jerry. That's a great idea.
And also, yeah, I mean, I like that. And also, of course, Dominic, I think you know that it should be miles per hour added per hour, or miles. There's a real problem with that for the common person to understand units. So I wish there was another way we could talk about that.
But no, John, is that complicated? It's miles of range added per 15 minutes.
Yeah, that's all it's trying to say. First off, there's a typo in there.
Oh,
and by the way, the other reason that works really well is really good advertising per 15 minutes. Whenever somebody's talking about charging an EV, they're thinking, I got to be there for hours. I talked to my cousin about driving from Florida to Georgia. He said, I'm not getting an EV. I'll spend hours and hours charging. I'm going, I get 250 miles worth of range in my, or 200 miles worth of range in my EV6. in 15 minutes. You're not going to spend a long time there.
Right. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think the other thing that's interesting, I mean, the whole point about we're in transition right now and it's making it hard for everybody to do any kind of estimation about what to get out of the Charger. And added to that is that like when we take the Chevy Bolt out, BOLT, we could go to the biggest Charger we want and we're only getting 25, kilowatts because it's limited internally. So once that all changes, hopefully there'll be some kind of steady, reliable performance and Charger performance, and that we can actually do this. But I really like your work on this because it's taking us to where we need to be. It's just really hard right now,
It's really hard right now with all these variables. And I talked to he's going to be doing a talk in February, and his response to the whole thing was, we're kind of like 1922 right now. Right? You've got a lot of people trying to put solutions out there, and all the solutions are kind of very different. And you'd never think about whether or not two other cars are at the gas pump with you, and that's going to reduce your
Oops, I lost you guys.
your refill time on gasoline.
Dang it.
Right?
Did I lose
So
everybody?
We have you, Jerry. About 15 minutes. What do you think? Was there more? Another question? Okay, that's really good. I appreciate that, and then I'll work with Cecilia to figure out how to clean it up and then get it on the thing. And then the next one, if you guys thought these were bad, go to the next one. It's even worse. Because I've been trying to scratch my head on the next one. Is trying to figure out a way to talk about the cost of charging versus the cost of refilling the gas tank. And as a driver, I'm pretty sure that a Hummer is 10 miles a gallon and a Hummer is 1 mile per kilowatt hour. And a truck is about 20 miles per gallon, and a truck is about 2 miles per kilowatt hour. So it's not perfect, but there's a sort of convenient way to talk that miles per gallon is about 10 times the miles per kilowatt hour number. And then you can really talk about, simple comparisons. If you just use that rule of thumb in your pocket, knowing that when I say 10 times, it might mean 9 times and it might mean 11 times, but it's within it's a rule of thumb within about 10% of being right. And then you can get a sense of how much it's going to take you to charge your vehicle in dollars per mile, because that's what I was trying to drive, is dollars per mile. And if you compare, say, this 4 miles per kilowatt hour vehicle at 28 cents per kilowatt hour, you're looking at 8 cents per mile versus the equivalent of Costco, it's 13 cents. So you're still a lot cheaper, even Sonoma Clean Power rates. My brother, who lives in Sacramento, he pays 14 cents a kilowatt hour. So it's half of our rates. My son in Texas, that's SMUD. My son in Texas pays 11 for the Bolt that he now drives.
Yeah.
So these values are all over the place. This is complicated too, but I was trying to figure out a way so we could talk new talk to old talk, and maybe it's miles per kilowatt hour. I don't know. It appears to be convenient that it's 10x or a tenth of the miles per gallon.
Hey, Dom, I lost the network for a few minutes. On the previous slide, I have another suggestion.
Sure, go back, Cecilia, we can do that.
You don't have to go back. I mean, it's a simple suggestion.
Okay.
If you look at Mike's Leaf, or even my Leaf, all it will take is 50 kilowatts. Some vehicles, some of the early Teslas take 150. Our EV6s will take 350. On that slide, maybe if there's a way with color in the first column to show the 50s, the 150s, the 350s, and then show that they're only relevant, the numbers are only relevant. You see 50, 90, 150, 200, blah, blah, blah. If you had something else that shows the car at the top and then show a color chart saying these numbers work and then they don't work. Like you'll never get 350 with the lead.
Oh, yeah, right. So there needs to be a tree to the right that shows which vehicle class.
Something, or you can even do it within that
Yeah.
column or whatever else.
Yeah, fair
Well,
enough.
You could also have an input that says what's the maximum kilowatt rate your car can take.
Oh, and do a dynamic page.
Just then it would be part of the calculation, right?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yeah, and Cecilia, I don't know if you're our rep for Tesla here today, but on this charging rate, the fee to charge, yeah, I didn't look at it quite closely, but it sure seemed to me like when I was renting a Tesla in Louisville, Kentucky, and I went to a supercharger, I think it still charged me the same fee as if I was on a supercharger on I-5 in Williams or something. And I think there's demand chart, fees vary based on site usage, but when you're using the supercharger network, is there regional pay structures or not?
I'm not exactly sure how it's structured, but what I've noticed is that like busier areas, more metro areas that have like maybe higher electricity needs, they do tend to have higher costs. Depending on time of day, they might have higher rates because of local usage. And electricity costs will vary regionally, of course, and that's factored into it. But I can't speak to a exact like if you're in this area, this is how you would calculate the cost. It's more of a, like what they've decided based on what those local factors. But you can, I mean, I don't know if you're saying that you didn't see the price that was listed. You can see that on the screen when you're in the car.
Yeah, I could see. I just didn't.
Okay.
I didn't figure it out till I was probably like on my third rental, and it's like,
Okay.
oh,
Wait, and I
this.
think it's more complicated than all that. Maybe Wood
Yeah.
can speak to this. I know there's legislation that was already passed that is phased in through 2027 that now establishes the standard for how charging is done on the stations. That is that everybody used to have their own little algorithm. If you park here this long, then it's that. We're going to charge that much to start with, and then so much per hour after that. I think my recollection was that there was legislation which has already been passed forcing the algorithm, not the price, but the algorithm to be consistent from supplier to supplier, station to station, based on kilowatt hours. You remember that, Woody?
Vaguely, but I don't recall any specifics off the top of my head. I'd have to dig into it.
Yeah, that was 2 or 3 years ago that I ran across that. In fact, I had a little article that I did for the club on that.
The other comment on this chart to take away and is that Electrify America pricing right now at 48 cents is nearly the same as Costco for gasoline today in California. So in other states, it's better than that. Sonoma Clean Power, we charge at home, it's 28 cents, at least what I read this morning. Electrify America is 48 cents. So 1 kilowatt hour there, is 53 cents with the efficiency factors. And that same at 4.79 at Costco, it's 50 cents. So just it's something that, again, we need to make sure that Electrify America is helping us out here because it's starting to bump up. And these are regional too, based on what Cecilia said. Like, something we're starting to bump up where electricity and gas are approaching the same price in certain markets, which is a little scary, right? Because at least when I started going down this road, charging at home was a 4-to-1 factor. now with PG&E costs going through the roof. Like I said, Sacramento, they're half of our rates. Texas, they're a third of our rates or so. You go up to Electrify America prices. It's just something we need to watch. And I just think we need to be armed with all of the arguments from a cost perspective about EVs.
Dominic, with this page that's up now, I'm a little confused about how 50 cents a kilowatt hour matches the gas, because if you just look at that bottom one, that would be like 14 cents per mile. Is that what you're saying is the same as
48 cents a kilowatt hour in column 1? It's 53 cents delivered with the efficiency factor. Because remember, with gas, you just put in a gallon. You don't, the pump doesn't eat up 10% of the gas.
Mhm.
With electricity, it does. Right. So you need to put in
Mhm.
50, you need to put in 5% to cover that, or 5 extra kilowatt hours to cover that off from gas.
Right. I just, okay. I'd have to look at it, but when I've done the
It's just
calcs,
not-
it didn't look like it was that close to me.
Yeah. 48 cents is that's a big number. Right? I mean,
That's the premium rate on EV2A in our area is 48 cents during a premium time. So Electrify America's rate is pretty darn high. The off-peak time is 24 cents.
Well, it's 28. I just looked this morning, or
20.
20.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, I just looked. I looked at PG&E because, I mean, when you
It's Sonoma Clean Power. So I'm sorry.
look at Sonoma Clean Power, all you get is generation costs, not transmission costs.
Right. No. Yeah, but I had them together. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it might be off a penny or two. That's always what SCP had said.
The other thing I was wanting to say about this page, which is cool, I'm just thinking, the purpose of the charts on the left are just to kind of give people a rough estimate, is it? And then, but on the right is the actual data. Are the charts on the left needed?
The charts on the left, or if you don't have a calculator, really it's if you can just put the numbers into the yellow cells, or where it says input here, the dollars per mile just spits out.
Okay, yeah, because those things, if you wanted to, that would be, of course, enough to it would simplify it for users if you wanted to have something on the web.
Yeah.
The other thing I would say is, it might be useful for people, kind of like what we were talking about, maybe Jerry suggested on something earlier, just change the dollars per mile or add to it dollars per 100 miles, because, it may be nice for people to be able to say, how's it much it's going to cost if I go 100, but $0.07 per mile, it's a little hard to.
Yeah.
Hard
7 cents. Yeah, right. 7 cents a mile.
Yeah, I mean, add it to, it'd be nice to have a per mile, but then maybe per 100, and then you could say, oh, wow, yeah.
Well, I was going to do it 7,000 mils per mile.
Okay.
We can move on. I'm not saying the chart's done, but it was just something I was just trying to put together to, again, trying to think about how to streamline the messaging as we move into the next, row of early adopters.
Yeah, I like the work. Yeah, that's good.
Thanks, Shane.
All right. So talking about that messaging from that truck earlier, previously Toyota used the term self-charging, which they received some mockery of. We talked about it at a meeting, I think maybe earlier this year or last year. So this zero need for a public charger. They're basically saying the same thing, and it's de-emphasizing plugging in, which is kind of not what you want to do. Sure, you can say that you're able to get by without having to charge, but emphasizing that you don't need to charge it at all, and that's fine. Not the best thing.
Yeah, I could see why they would go. I agree with you. I know when I had the Volt had a similar marketing problem because when you run out of electricity on you're on a road trip, you just can't put enough electricity into the volt fast enough. No matter what you did, you were going to charge the volt at 10 miles an hour, no matter what you did. And so you could choose between 10 miles an hour charging 4 hours or 11 minutes to go swipe 9 gallons into it. And that's the road tripping. I think that's where Stellantis is headed there. I'm not defending it, but I think that is
the point though, that's their messaging for a hybrid, right? Basically.
Yeah.
You don't need to charge it. I mean, why don't they just say electric generator included?
Yeah. Yeah, I think right. It does.
Does solar charging on a car count as self-charging?
Ooh, probably.
I would allow that one.
Well, I'm just thinking ahead of the times, maybe 6 months, 9 months, to see what comes on the market.
You talk about
Sure.
Aptera.
I don't know, David.
No,
I think you're going to be waiting longer.
Okay.
Just
All right.
asking.
All right. That's it for the news. And oh, how did this get up here? I think we have our discussion here. Dom, would you like to?
Yeah, so we had so we're heading into 2024. We're in a market inflection point. And I thought it would be good, or Cecilia actually raised a point of having a discussion about what does the org look like in 2024. So I thought we'd just go through. So the officers got together this week and kind of laid out this format, and really wanted to raise this with the membership about what we're doing as a club. And so I put together a few charts. One is really just on the mission and how we're meeting the mission. The next one is on events, the events that we're currently doing. Really, what is our role in education? Hopefully Jerry will remind me what we meant by the consumers versus suppliers. I left it on there, but I don't 100% remember what that intent was, but we'll get there. And then from an advocacy perspective, we've actually done a little bit, and maybe we should be doing more, maybe not. I think we should talk about the venue. The fact that Thunderstruck is now open again is very interesting to me. I think it's very good. And then membership. These meetings used to have at Thunderstruck. We had 20 to 30 members would show up on a Saturday. And then we talk about some projects that maybe we want to take on that might allow us to address all of these things. So if we can go to the next slide. And just we covered off the very first one in Cecilia's presentation earlier. The Electric Vehicle Association. This is right from our elders and betters, educates and advocates for the rapid adoption of electric vehicles. And so out here in the North Coast, out here in California, what's the best way to accomplish that goal? So that's
Well,
kind of.
I want to stop right there. I mean, when we were talking about it earlier this week, the first question I wanted to raise was, is this the right mission statement? Is that what we want the club to be doing?
Yeah,
No, fair enough.
good start.
I think that's a good question, but I also think the wording of it could be looked at like, are we the Electric Vehicle Association? Aren't we the North Bay Electric Vehicle? Aren't we the NBEAA?
Oh, yeah.
And I would add to to Dave's comment. I think, yeah, sure. I think that's going to apply for a few years still. So
I found that in the presentations we did, and I'm sorry Andy doesn't join us anymore, was that one of the things that, because of our orientation with EVs, it's the same orientation we have with electrifying our buildings and making our buildings more efficient, or the whole concept of electrifying everything. And I wouldn't mind having that as being part of the mission as well. What do you want to jump in? I see your hand up.
Yeah. Thanks, Jerry. And yeah, my comment is sort of segues well from what you just said, because I think this mission statement could be fine depending on how we're defining electric vehicles. And I gotta say, Jerry, I think we should restrict our advocacy and our work to vehicles, right? I think getting us mission creep off into building, that is a world unto itself with its own nomenclature and everything, and just layers and layers of policy. It's just way too much to grapple with. So I think we should keep it to vehicles, but I think, what are we defining as vehicles? Does it need to be passenger cars? I don't think so. I have been very much involved with and supporting Select Track with their electric tractors, trying to get electric tractors into ag, right? I go to county supervisor meetings or local, like, municipal meetings, and they're still procuring gas vehicles, municipal, be it, trash haulers or, street sweepers or, whatever, municipal vehicles, and they're still purchasing diesel and gas, and there are electric alternatives. So I think if we define electric vehicle as beyond just passenger vehicles, then I think the mission statement is probably might not need too much tweaking. Could be fine.
I want to argue with you about that, but Mike has his hand up too. So Mike?
Yeah, and actually, I gotta say, I agree with Woody there, but my only statement is, let's just be careful, because our nonprofit status comes from being a chapter of the EAA, right? So whatever we want to do, we want to not do something that would cause that to be a concern, where we'd have to do our own nonprofit tax filing and all that kind of crud. So
Well, we could change the mission to the North Bay Electric Auto Association as a chapter of the EVA, blah, blah, blah. The argument I'll make about electrification buildings, et cetera, my argument has to do with vehicle to grid. And the vehicle now is becoming an energy resource. And I want to be able to have discussions about that, and how as an energy resource, and how do you use that resource, and where that resource is being used. And we have had that in our slides so far. I don't know how to put that into the mission, or whether it needs to be there, but I see that the connection between our vehicles and our building infrastructure is now starting to, the distinction between the two is starting to dissolve.
When the vehicle is plugged into the
Yeah. Even things like SEP and its a grid savvy program, right? Let me stop charging your vehicle during this time. It has to do, because we're not going to a station any longer to go fill up. So we're into a different infrastructure, and an infrastructure that we're sharing with other things, as opposed to a distinct one.
Just a quick response to that. I totally agree with you, Jerry. And I think that we can validly include that kind of work in what we do, things that relate to vehicle, to grid, vehicle, to anything, bidirectionality and whatnot. We can include that work in what we do, I think, without changing the mission statement. I don't think it needs to be added in there to be taking on some of those issues that directly relate to the vehicles.
Well, the only way I would change it, and I'm just sitting here thinking about it, with that first part, and advocates the rapid adoption of electric vehicles and the associated infrastructure.
Say it again.
All I would add at the end of that, and the associated infrastructure.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, that might be just something we can hack onto what John wrote in the chat. Education advocates for the adoption of electric vehicles in all branches of transportation and associated infrastructure, or something like that. For that, we probably need to check that.
I like that,
Mike. To your point, Mike, making sure that that's in aligned with our national charter, right? That we're not mission creep is a great way to end up with a mess, right? So, yeah, that's probably worth fun.
And I think again, I'm no lawyer, but I think we'll be okay as long as somewhere in there it talks about electric vehicles and education. You know,
Yeah.
those are the two main things for the EAA.
Okay, we could probably go on to the next slide. And Cecilia, I assume you're taking notes if you always do. And
It always does. Yeah.
yeah, we can go to the next one if you're ready to.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to comment about that last one, and partly to what he was saying is, just given that there is work going on with, train electrification, of course, with a smart train, it'd be nice to push for that, and with ferries and electric marine work also. So that's just cool.
Yeah.
And that mission lets us do that.
So we thought we'd put together something on, just checking our answer, right? How well are we accomplishing the mission based on what we've done in recent past? Well, we had a great Earth Day for those of you who were able to attend. And honestly, John and Ellen's truck got as much attention, if not more attention, than the Tesla, although the Aptura was a bit of a show stealer later in the afternoon, but just honestly, but John's truck got a lot of attention because there was a small number of people that were trying to think about ways that they could take their own rolling stock and convert it. But so we had a great Earth Day there. I brought my electric bike there as well, as you can see, right in front of the pop-up there. And then I think the work that we did and our entire relationship with Sonoma Clean Power, particularly through National Drive Electric Week, was just as powerful. Cecilia did a great talk there, and there was 2 talks. And I think they're trying to sort out how we do the talks in both Spanish and English, and how we address that going forward. But I guess the question was, Liz, we look into 2024, are there other events that we should add on? Or I don't think we need to vote on, do we need to do these again? I think it's really, do we add to these as opposed to revisit whether these are worthwhile. But
yeah, one thing I thought about is just I really liked the fact that we had the bilingual options. I just was surprised that we didn't have people attending the Hispanic, the Spanish versions. And one of the reasons I'm surprised is that the Hispanic community is totally interested in Ellen's and my truck every time we are there. They are like into it. They're figuring out how to do it. They're thinking about how it could work for them and their work and etc. I'm just interested that we didn't have more. And so I'm wondering how we can increase that outreach. That's all.
One of the things that I wonder is the guys that I work with from time to time, I go up and I talk to them in Spanish. My Spanish is not that good. That might be the reason, but normally they'll turn around and they'll talk to me in English again. And part of it is they live here, and a lot of them, when they're talking to each other, will speak in Spanish, but when they interact with others, they tend to do that in English because their kids all speak English.
yeah. Well, maybe that's and you'll see there's a few other areas that we could talk about that might be something that we look at, is trying to push into that area a little harder.
Yeah, but I think what Jerry's saying is a really good point. It doesn't mean that we didn't have attendance from that. Yeah.
Right.
Es NDN muy bien. Yeah.
Okay, we can go to the next one. I'm not looking for answers here. It's new information, so we'll cover it again. I did just yesterday, I just typed in, I guess in Bing, I thought it was Google, but apparently Bing has taken me over again. But I asked about the EV market forecast, and on the same page, this is the same page, right next to each other. Polestar just cut its 23 EV forecast, halves the margin target, and right below that, on the exact same page, EV sales will soar to 73 million units, to rise to 61% from 2% during that span. And so I have no idea what's happening in the market. There's no clue whatsoever. But you know, we went from DIY vehicles, the things that, you know, if you go back to 2009, if you wanted an EV, you were doing it the way John did it. 2010, you had 2 vehicles. Now there's 144, I think, according to PG&E options, things you can go buy. And so now that that has changed, now that that market has changed, and now we're, at least in California, we're out of the new early adopters. I think there's still a vast number of early adopters to go after throughout the rest of the country, but that's not the area we're in. We need to get the rest of America into where California is, in my mind, before we give up that the market has gone flat. But nevertheless, here, where we are getting great traction, do we need to change our strategies from an educational perspective? And when we talk about educational, are we talking about educating those in our community, or and I don't know the answer to this, and I'm not proposing one. Are we talking about education outside of the people on the phone, or are we talking about educating the people that are attending meetings? And I don't know the answer to that.
Well, and you asked that question from the very first slide of consumers versus suppliers or whatever. And that was the point of,
thank you, Jerry.
Should our education be of those who are going to buy a car or those who are going to sell a car? And the point actually comes from electrification in buildings, whatever else. We've been selling the idea of electrification to people in homes. And so the acceptance or the ramp is very slow. On the other, because when they call their contractor saying, I need a new water heater, the first thing they sell them is a gas water heater. I need a new range. They get an electric one, or they get a gas one. I need a new heater. You're going to get a gas one. Why? Because the suppliers know how to do that, and the suppliers have the tools, configuration to do those things. So that was actually the question. Are the car dealers now prepared? Are there things that we could do to support car dealers? Because if we support them, then when somebody walks in and says, I need a new car, the question is, which one of these gas cars do you want? Oh, you really going to insist on electric? Well, you might consider an electric. How do you drive? Yeah, how many times has a car dealer that you walked into asked you the question, what do you use the car for?
Well, they usually assume you've done your research and you know what you want to buy.
Well, my one friend Sheila drives to the grocery store a quarter mile away, and the car dealer insisted she get a 6-cylinder because she needed the power.
Should have got a bike.
Well, I've not been a car dealer or a salesman, but it seems to me that their approach is somebody comes into a car dealership, they're scanning them and seeing what the most they can sell them, right? Based on what incentive they get or what money they get, you know? So I don't even know if a salesman gets, or a sales dealership gets more for an EV or less than a gas car or a pickup. You know, it seems like pickups are probably what they're going to push for, but I don't know. You know, that's just, I wonder if we can find that out.
Yeah, when it comes to service, gasoline vehicles have like regular maintenance that is included in, the thing that a dealership can do. So there's that incentive on that side as well.
Yeah.
John, you brought up a good point. I mean, if we were selling and advocating to dealers, then one of the places we would focus on is how can you make money on this? So what are the incentives? If you take Jim Bonas, was a good example. I don't know how Dom bought his car. I bought mine by leasing it for 1 month. So Jim Bone got $7,500. managed to talk me into a few $100 worth of management fees and then leasing fees. And so they made another, out of the $7,500, they made another $2,000 on the vehicle. Right.
And then Jerry, you bought out of that lease a month later. Is that how you did it?
Yeah, I leased it for 36 months. After I paid for 1 month lease, I went down and actually I picked up the phone and called Kia and said, I want to pay off the lease. Well, it turned out I could pay off the lease and then buy the car after that, or I could just buy the car at that point and pay off the lease. And it turned out the net effect was I saved $5,000 on the car as a result of doing that. And Jim Bone was perfectly happy to do that. Huh?
You did better than me.
Oh, okay.
I didn't figure out all those machinations. So,
yeah.
So I guess the point of this chart, is really is we can't take on the question to the right. We don't know the answer to the question on the right? We don't have a clue where the market's going to go or what the forecast is going to do. No clue. We know this no more than anyone else on the earth, and it's not our jobs to know it. But I think it might be our jobs to educate, and that education could be through these events that we support, and maybe there's other ways that we can educate through our website, or maybe we can educate by long-term partnerships with dealers so that we can help them get smarter. Or maybe they're supposed to do that through their manufacturer networks. I don't know, but it seems like there might be an opportunity here to help us build that out a little bit.
I think if we were to talk about educating sellers, I think it's going to be like some of the basic stuff that you're telling people who would be buying a car, just so they're more informed, to tell people who they do want to buy an electric vehicle or who are curious. They can provide actual information if their incentive allows them to do that, I guess. But
yeah, maybe something that just occurred to me. Maybe we have a kiosk or put our name out there at Sonoma Clean Power that says, if anybody comes in here looking to buy an electric car, call this number or use this email or this website, and that we become their resource, as like we were at National Travel Electric Week, where they're talking to drivers and owners as opposed to reviewers who only get 2 hours with the car. We get a month with the car, years with the car. So
I really would wonder, it'd be great to find out from them, how many people go to Sonoma Clean Power to get information about buying a car.
That's a good question, Jerry.
I bet you it's done.
Well, I mean, remember, 300 people signed up, or 250.
No, because they advertised that specifically as that event for that purpose. So I don't know what happens after that.
Yeah, right. What happens like between now and the next big event they do like that?
Yeah,
that's a good point.
One thing I was wondering, and this may be a question that Woody could address, but is given that California specifically has this plan for 2035 or whatever to change the ratio of EVs being sold, it seems like to just say that as a political or as a government entity is without kind of underlying support because of the problems with dealers. If they're still trying to sell gas pickups, then how is that going to happen? So I'm wondering if there's a way we could advocate for any kind of support legislation in the state that says, look, in order to get this goal met, we're going to have to do something to incentivize dealers to sell the cars. Just a question.
Yeah, I can speak to that because I think there's broad misunderstanding of what that mandate is. It's simply this. The state of California, and in 2035 will no longer register gasoline cars. People can still buy and sell gas cars, but not the state won't register new ones. So used cars, all that kind of thing, they'll still be around. You can still drive them. So it's a soft shift, really. I don't think there's anything further. I mean, we just need to keep plugging away at, educating and advocating for EV adoption. But that is a real easy thing to do, and many automakers and whatnot are ahead of that, and other countries are ahead of that target. So it's not that's not something we need to worry about too much, I don't think.
I just thinking about the dealership thing again. I know that Redwood Credit Union has like they offer lower interest rates for EVs, so they have like some of that incentive, or at least they are trying to get people to do cleaner vehicles. I want, and I know that they have like I think they have like a used car lot. I wonder if it would be helpful for them to offer any education resources there, just as a thought.
So, Dom, back to this slide. So I guess we agree that the role still is one of education. Question is the forms of education that we should focus on and how we do that. Does that sound right to you?
That Jerry, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. So
Okay.
that was my.
Well, that's
That-
I think that's a working session, right?
Yeah, that it is, and I'm just raising all these things, trying to figure out, just challenging us as a group. How do we address our our charter, our mission, or mandate, whatever you want to call it. But I think this is an area where maybe we can lean into this one a little bit more, and maybe we can combine some of these things, lean into it more. To the areas that John was talking about, going more into the Spanish community or the disadvantaged community, because maybe that's who need the help the most. I don't know the answer to that, but it's something that we should be thinking about.
Well, I mean, maybe just to throw in one more thing before going on the next slide. Maybe one of the things that we do is what you said, but not for Sonoma Clean Power. Maybe we can write up something, put something together that we could actually deliver to the car dealerships and say, hey, we're the North Bay Electric Auto Association. All of us have been driving EVs for some period of time, have experience with them. Here's some of the things that we know about EVs. If you want one of us or us to come and talk to your team about EVs and practical experience, we'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, that's right.
By the way, Woody, I'm sorry, this is on the side. I talked to the legislature as well when I was giving the demos on the vehicles, and I said, whose stupid idea was this in the first place? It cost you a shitload worth of money, and look at what you got.
Yeah, Jerry, that before you said that, your other, I was trying to capture your other comment in this owner partnership with dealers and manufacturers, right?
Yeah.
Somehow we'd have a NBEAA logo or a handout in those dealerships and say, call us for support or
Yeah, if you want more information about an EV, or are you hesitant, even give them a handout. So if you're hesitant about buying an EV or want to talk to an EV owner and driver,
right, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, we can go to the next one. Like I said, I don't think we're trying to drive for answers today. This is, just trying to make sure we're keeping these things in front of us. Oh, okay. So from an advocacy perspective, Woody does a great job keeping us informed of what's going on from a California perspective, and hopefully we can lean on Woody from a national perspective as well. Count on you, Woody. Got a lot going on here, but we when we can, we try to put our NBEAA logo and signature on bills that are that make sense and support the overall objective. We have a membership. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that bill, guys, I voted against us advocating Bill 233. The reason that I figured that the manufacturers are going to do it, they need to do it because there actually will be demand for it. But the problem has turned out to be, and continues to be, if I had that, and I do have it on my car, I can get the stations. I can't wire them into my house because the regulations don't let me do that yet. What we really need is the regulations changed first to make this possible. What do you disagree?
Well, this is a lengthy conversation. We don't have this on the agenda, so you're raising an issue that I could definitely talk to, and I could bring in some other people to fully address this. There are reasons why this is a good place, this being SB 233 and mandating uniformity that all vehicles have bidirectionality.
that
It
part
has
I
to
know.
do with it has to do with market signals. It has to do with sort of catalyzing the EVSE side of things. So there's a lot to discuss on this. But again, we could go down a rabbit hole, but it's not on the agenda.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I wasn't intending it to be a rabbit hole or adding it to the agenda. I just wanted to point out the things that we currently have done from an advocate perspective, and that's one of them. The other was the work that Jerry does on the Citizen Advisory Committee for the Sonoma County Transportation Authority, and then as well as the work that Cecilia and Sonia are doing on the Sonoma County Clean Power EV NOR outreach. As we go forward into 2024, is this the right mix of things? We want to do more, or is I kind of think this is about the right mix personally. I'm not sure we've got the bandwidth to pick up more things, but I think if we but it's part of the discussion as we advocate and educate is the main charter, I think. So this is part of advocation.
Advocation.
Well, I just have one. I guess I'll put it in the form of a question because I had a few things I was going to bring up, and I'm probably going to shove those to the side and just raise one sort of question, which is, I think it's great. NBEAA is really focusing on sort of positive, constructive, forward-looking advocacy and education and all that. There are threats, though, to EV adoption and sort of the best sort of mousetrap option. And I in my work vis-a-vis the state legislature, there's intel that there's going to be an onslaught of bills in the early part of introduced in January from the hydrogen lobby. And my question, I'll put it this way, the question is NBEAA interested in also, putting some capacity and resources into, battling stupid ideas, any combustion fuels, hydrogen fueling stations for hydrogen passenger vehicles, all that kind of thing. So I'll put it as a question.
No. I'd be signed up to battle the hydrogen because I think, why would you want to use 10 times as much energy to go 1 mile down the road as what you do with a battery? I mean, it doesn't make any logical sense. The argument I get from my friends about it is there's not enough lithium. I'm going, lithium is a very common element. You just need
I think it's really a threat because there's funding is a precious thing, and public dollars should not be wasted on stuff like that, right? And it's just infuriating that there's the lobby and this miseducation, and the legislators don't get it. And so you're right, Jerry. And I'm not sure if that's something that can be woven in somehow, or at least sort of put a pin in it and be aware that we might want to stand up, especially like in the North Bay and Sonoma County, say, look, no, we don't want you to start putting hydrogen fueling stations in everywhere. The Mariah is basically a failure. There's only like 12 to 13, 14,000 max hydrogen vehicles on the, in California. And the stories are going, in the wrong directions. Anyway,
hydrogen has this role to play. It's not in our cars.
So, I agree with this general discussion. I think that it can be more generalized, though, into what things do we want to help, either myth busting or education wise, for misinformation, or like there's all sorts of groups that are out there going, oh, it's stupid, battery cars, and they are going to die in 5 years, and everybody's going to have them in the junkyards. I mean, all this stuff, including hydrogen, which is funded by the oil industry, that we can re-educate. I think it would fit into that.
Do we want to have one of the activities is and connected, with the things that Woody's doing. I mean, at the state level, speak on, that we would actively speak, not just send in, here's our signature on something, go actively speak. 20 years ago, when we had the mandate for EVs, for zero emission vehicles, I went to Sacramento to speak. Now, I guess my voice didn't, because we lost the mandate. It was all the manufacturers saying, oh, nobody wants electric vehicles. And there was everybody with electric vehicles saying, yes, we want electric vehicles. Even though they're limited is what they can do today. We wanted electric vehicles then because they served 90% of what we wanted to do. I think this kind of stuff, sorry, I mean, that was the question I'm putting on the table, is should we include as one of our outreach activities, actively going to speak on various legislative issues, especially the stupid ones?
I think that's all part of advocacy, right? And I think it's all part of that. How we do it is, really up to us. But
what I'm saying is something a little bit different than we've done before. We would send to Sacramento during a hearing a representative, and they would represent the club.
I think that might be fine. I think it should be, there should definitely be sort of and I can imagine there'd be plenty of opportunities for this, that there's a direct connection or nexus to, to the North Bay.
Yeah, right.
Right? Yeah.
Right.
Well, also, if we don't have to send someone from our group specifically, but we could organize with groups like what some of our members are with, including Woody, to find their people to go speak, on behalf of a specific topic. Because for myself, I would never do it because I'd freeze up and, wouldn't do anybody any good. But
John, the reason I suggested, rather than having Woody represent us and represent somebody else, having been on boards, the people who come to speak, you count the number of them to walk up and speak. In a lot of cases, it's a small number of voices that make a large number of changes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think we can put a pin on that one for now and move to the next slide. But I think all of that is neat. We just need some more time to think about it and discuss it, and then put an action plan together. The other one that, and this is really something that Sonia was talking about on the call. Unfortunately, she's not here, so I'll do justice to it. But we had, I think Cecilia had earlier in the year tried to solicit articles for the website, snippets, a day in the life sorts of things. That wasn't get a lot of response on that, but maybe there's something that we can do to better accomplish our mission, whether it's blog posts or videos or educational articles, community outreach, multifamily housing, charging solutions, blah, blah, blah. Are there projects that we may want to take on as a, not as a community service organization, but really part of either education or advocacy is how I.
Dom, can I jump in on this one? Because
please do.
Yeah, part of our discussion was this: when Cecilia asked us, "Hey, you guys send me articles, and I'll post the articles." The flip around of this one would be different. Is that as a club, we might pick a topic and say, "Hey, let's make a video or a write-up on this topic," and we would assign it to a small subcommittee group where people would volunteer and say, we're going to do that one, as opposed to saying, send me things.
Yeah.
Say, hey, let's have a 5-minute video, a 2-minute video on charging stations. And then 3 or 4 of us to get together and we'd make up a write-up what the dialogue would be and maybe do a little video and we would post that. That seemed like 2 things to me. One was, instead of sitting through one of our meetings and trying to find something, now people could come to our site and they'd find a topic and they say, well, let me see that topic. And they would get that very fast.
Yeah.
By assigning it, now we know somebody's going to do it. We take the responsibility of doing it. And we say we're going to have it done. It's always better than saying, when something shows up, let's do it. So I think maybe in each meeting, we pick a topic and we find 3-4 members that say, hey, I'll work on that one. I have no
Yeah.
problem editing videos. So,
Yeah, and part of that, Cecilia, maybe you know the answer to this. We can get some of the metrics on who's accessing our site, or what is driving people to our site, and then use that as part of our educational outreach. So we are at time right now.
do you have anything else on this, or was that it?
And I think that's the last slide. Oh, yes, the last one is this one. Okay, so this is probably the most this one is an interesting one. It was really about the monthly meetings themselves, right? So there are now 9 of us on this Zoom call, and so switching to hybrid, during COVID was really, or switching to online only during COVID was the only way it worked, the only way we kept moving forward. And now we have a program where we switch to a hybrid format, but it means that we don't get that human contact, we don't get that socialization, we don't get any of those things that help build community, honestly, right? And so it's something we need to think about if we want to stay in this format as we use this to build community among ourselves and others.
And just to add to that, members who have left us, have left being active, gave 2 reasons. One was, we're not meeting in person anymore. I don't get to see anybody. And so it's not that much fun for me. And the second one that came in was what he has right here. The ship has sailed already on electric cars. Electric cars are part of everybody's life, and it's an option when you go to buy a car today. We were the outliers, and so the club in promoting EVs specifically. There's some members that go, you don't need to promote the EVs anymore. You go out and buy a car. Why would you buy something other than EV? But I think the in-person is going to help us a lot. So, by the way, Dom, I would vote for, let's keep the schedule that we have. As long as the schedule once a month, the second Saturday, it works. If we can do these hybrid, that was the intention I had when I started doing the online, was that we could get back together again and had a venue. We do hybrid. We did that from SCP.
Yeah.
That was a little bit more formal than, I mean, Zeno liked it because it was a cleaner place. Thunderstruck is feels more like you're there,
Yeah, right. You're right. You're in the bowels of there, right? So,
what do you want?
Yeah, I'm just having an idea for an in-person, a great possible location for an in-person meeting. I love Thunderstruck, and I look forward to hopefully us meeting in person there. Select Track, the electric tractor manufacturer, has this really, really cool showroom thing, lines of electric tractors and such in Santa Rosa. And so I could ping them and ping Steve Heckeroth, who's the developer of it, and see if I'm sure we could. It's got lots of space. Be a great place for a meeting. So I'd be happy to and I'm imagining maybe sometime in the spring or whatever, spring or summer, to meet out there. So just a thought.
The club before I joined had met in different places from time to time. Like when I first ran into the club, the meeting was at the coffee house down in the Barlow, right? And then after that, everything was Thunderstruck. But I like that idea of shuffling around every once in a while. Yeah, John.
I think we should. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Okay. Well, one thing this brings up for me is just the idea that that wondered if we could kind of change the way we do meetings and have business meetings separate from just get-together meetings. Just because part of me thinks that people who come in new that are EV owners and they have to sit through all of our business shit, or about the meeting, you know, or I just want to have fun about EVs. I just wondered maybe we could do both, you know, like have
Agreed.
a business meeting and a get together meeting every month, you know.
And, you know, if you look at the outline that Cecilia is following is the outline that Sonia followed, which was the outline that I created as a result of watching what Alan did. And in fact, if you look at it, there's a section, and I had it earlier in the meeting, but it turned out it took so much time, we never got to anything else, which was the bullshit time. And I called it peanut gallery instead of bullshit. And we did that a lot at Thunderstruck. And I think it's on the calendar, and we should keep our meetings tight enough so that we have that time to sit there and bullshit and go look at each other's cars. And yeah, maybe it's not going to be online, right?
Right.
But that's going to be FaceTime. And maybe we change that to the FaceTime time, right?
Yeah,
And it's a part of every meeting.
It's the thing that Bruce Knighton did, where he showed me a burned out 80 amp fuse or a breaker. We can't do that like this.
Yeah.
You know? And I like this idea of so mixing it up. So I'd like to meet at dealerships. I'm working on meeting with the dealers and building a better relationship with dealers, particularly the Chevy guys and the Kia guys, because those guys are actively trying to sell the stuff. The Ford guys still smell like dealers to me. but anyway, we'll sort all that out. But if we mix some with some Clean Power, and some with the dealers, and some with Selectrac, and some with, you know, maybe the National Drive Electric Week is the meeting, right? Everybody come to the meeting and let's, you know, and push hard there. And anyway, no decisions need to be made today, but just some things I wanted to cover and share with the group and get you guys thinking about it. And when we get together next time, we can kind of, you know, maybe over the next month or so, some of the stuff will solidify in your minds about how we want to do things. But I think we've done some great stuff. I think the market's changing enough for us now that I think we can help more now, right in this middle of this inflection point where, you know, there was a note that I think David Heacock had written about EV inventory sitting on dealer lots.
Yeah.
You know, how do we address that? Is that something we can help with? Well, maybe, I don't know, but we could at least advocate for it and educate around it. You know, we don't have any money. We can't recreate mandates or anything like that. So that's all I had. Cecilia, back to you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for facilitating that discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have a summary of this stuff to send out in the meeting, and at the next meeting, if we have some things that we need to decide on, if we're actually going to do them for sure, we can do like a vote on those in the next meeting. We'll have all the required or recommended notice for voting.
Yeah. And it may be that, you know, these things are, each one of these, I think somebody said it, each one of these a discussion by itself. So maybe we take them on one at a time or two at a time.
Yeah, I just hope that this, like particularly that last the prior slide, those things don't get lost, because to me they're really critical. You know, and so yeah, just so that we know that we're going to address those again, that'd be good. All
right, so our next meeting will be December 9th. We will, you know, it's like we said we're going to meet on, or it's just a default, it says meet on Zoom, but we'll figure out if we're going to do anything in person. If you have presentation ideas, or if you'd like to do a presentation, you reach out to NBEAA-team at googlegroups.com to share your desire to do the presentation, or if you have ideas. With that, I think that we are a little bit over time, so we are done.
Before we go, should I go ahead and tell Brian that we're going to meet at Thunderstruck next month on the 9th?
I think, Jerry, you seem to have some thoughts on that. Would you like to unmute to share?
Tell Brian, and I'd say absolutely yes, and then tell us when we're supposed to come over and help clean.
I thought the meeting was to clean it.
Yeah, 9 to 10 clean,
Yeah.
12 meeting.
All right,
Thanks
we can
all.
do that. Yeah.
So it's a holiday, so
Maybe-
maybe we'll dress up for the
Yeah.
holiday as well. Wear elf shoes and clean.
Bye.
Okay,
Everybody.
bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
Cecilia and Dom. That was good.
Okay, bye.